BurbankNBeyond.com.
I'm Robert Vincent for BurbankNBeyond.com. Today we're at the Burbank Fire Training Center, where a group of interns from UCLA are going to see what it's like during a physical rescue and extrication, and see the importance of Burbank firefighters, the safety, and to really feel the experience from the inside out, as opposed to them being in the trauma room with clean and nice, tidy places. They're going to feel everything as it happens.
They pulled up, they went ahead and took care of hazard control. They made the scene safe. Now they're going to go ahead and start stabilizing this vehicle to make sure that it doesn't move once they start cutting it open. The objective here for them is to take the suspension out of the vehicle. So you can see they just lift it up, really quickly slide those step cribs in, and they've went ahead and taken the suspension out. The vehicle won't be moving around now. One of the first things that the truck's going to do is secure the glass, take all that glass out, but before they do that, we want to make sure we cover up our patients. In some modern vehicles, the front windshield is now part of the structural integrity of the car. So the car is upside down and you take that windshield out or it's already gone, you have to consider that. It's only in smaller, more modern vehicles. The tool he's using is called a glass master. It's basically a saw that'll cut through that glass.
As you can see, it's a very noisy process. The firemen, paramedics are all about keeping the passengers safe. They're sawing the glass right now. You can imagine being a passenger inside of here.
So we're going to take each one of these windshields out a different way. This one we cut out, the other ones we're going to use a center punch and just pop them out.
Now they're popping out the glass, as you can see. Take the glass out.
Okay, right now the paramedics, in addition to treating, they're letting these people know what's going on. They're going to be hearing a lot of loud sounds, glass going to be breaking.
They're punching out the windows right now. Pretty crazy. You can imagine being a passenger in here when the actual breakage occurs.
Yeah, one of the things we really try and tell the guys is how important it is to keep that glass out of them. I know it's very hard to, if you get it in wounds or anything like that, it's nearly impossible to get out of.
They're going to cut the roof off the car to extricate the passengers.
So by now they would have already gone ahead and stripped the inside of that to ensure that there's no compressed gas cylinders for airbags, things like that on the inside. They're going to go ahead and cut the A-post. It looks like they're going to maybe peel back the roof and then take the doors out. Like Chief Schmidt said, they're really low on personnel right now. We could very easily, because we have 2 power units, be working on both sides of the car at the same time.
You hear the big popping sound, they just cut through part of the car.
You can see James kind of holding up the roof. When they cut this other side, they got to be real careful that once they take the structural integrity out of that post, that the roof doesn't come down at all towards the patient. Right now they're just cutting relief cuts so that once they cut the other side, they'll be able to fold it back. So those are cutters. They're just called our cutters, and these are called spreaders.
Then they're probably going to hit the roof with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, that's when you hear the jaws of life, that's what they're referring to.
Well, they're cutting on our side over here. As you can see, it's incredibly tight quarters.
One of the other things they would have done by this point is cut those seatbelts to make sure if they hit a pretensioner, it doesn't go off. A battery would have been disconnected. We would have had, like Chief Schmidt said, a whole other company here working as well.
So we have another cut happening.
Okay, you can see Firefighter Clark communicating with the guys inside, let them know where he's going to be cutting to make sure that they understand. Okay, so now he's just going to try and Now he's just trying to crease it so they'll be able to fold it back. You can see how important it is to let the patient know what's going on prior to doing that.
Crazy. They just peeled it back like a convertible top.
Yeah, you can see we have a lot better access for patient treatment at this point. Now they're going to go ahead and take that door off. What firefighter Wilmot is trying to do is create an access point so he could separate the area from the door and the hinges. Sometimes by pinching that fender, especially on newer cars, it'll crease the back side of that wheel well and it'll create an opening.
He made a very good point just now. He said no saws on this. Even if you want non-spark in case of gas leaks, that would not be good.
You guys can.
They're making a space so they can loosen up the front.
Yeah, they're good.
And pop off the dash and or the front end.
You guys can. Okay, so basically just making room for himself to work. He's getting this stuff out of the way a little bit.
And what is that tool called again? Jaws of life?
Yes, sir. They do refer to those as the jaws of life.
They've come down a lot smaller in size from 10 years ago and looks like a lot more efficient.
Yes.
A lot of modern cars have plastic fenders. We can just break those away and gain access a lot quicker.
4 feet long.
They weigh a lot more.
They'll be taking off the driver's door right now. You've got to pop out the upper and lower hinges. American craftsmanship.
These cars are built a lot tougher than the newer ones.
That's for sure.
You can imagine the feeling now. You've been in a terrible accident, you're pinned in your vehicle, you can't get out. We show up, start making more noise, scaring the heck out of you. And this doesn't happen in 5 minutes. This could take upwards of 20 to 30 minutes to completely get you out of the vehicle safely.
And that is the #1 issue, safety.
Yes, sir.
It's a lot easier to cut older vehicles because the sheet metal doesn't spread apart so quickly. They're really a lot stronger. The actual
I noticed that you covered everybody up. That you got a C-collar on, and you're really protective.
Yes, sir.
So right now is when it would start getting tricky, especially if Clark had someone whose feet were tangled up underneath those pedals. He'd have to be really cautious, and now's when it really would start getting complicated. Sure, right now is the perfect scenario. They can pop these doors pretty quickly. It doesn't get much easier than this.
They're still taking apart the car. These older cars are built much better than these new ones.
Have a lot more sheet metal on them, so the sheet metal strips away before you can get down to the hinges, so sometimes they take longer.
Oh, I see.
And when they go to push the dash, they're actually going to have to cut the area right next to his feet.
Grab the cutter, get the cutters, like a big pair of steel scissors. They're just going to cut that out there.
Yes.
If one of the paramedics was mentioned that this process is not 5 minutes, it could take 20 or 30 minutes. So that you really try to keep people calm, because if you're going through the trauma of the accident, they still have to deal now with the noise and everything, the extraction of themselves.
Older vehicles are a little bit easier to read. When you look at the impact, they don't really have the crumple zones like the newer ones do.
This is an incredible process. It lets the interns know exactly what goes on with the firefighters and paramedics. So when they're sitting back in their relaxed place in the hospital thinking, why didn't you take care of this or that? Now they know. The reality of it is a whole lot different than what you think it should be or may be.
So there's a hardened nader bolt in there that's really difficult to get through. Sometimes at this point, if you undo that inside latch, you could actually pick the door up and just take it off. These guys are trying to pull it apart. Other options are to separate it. We try not to cut that nader bolt because it's hardened steel.
Once the roof is off, we have access to the patients. Wherever the team isn't working to access or tear the vehicle open, we would be over here working on this patient, literally cutting away the clothes, getting vital signs, starting IVs, getting an update on her condition, seeing where she's hurt the worst and mental status, and then start to figure the best way to get her out once they've come and open this door.
I imagine if there's any bleeding, that's the priority.
Of course, bleeding and airway. We'll make sure that's all taken care of. As long as they're stabilized where they're sitting. If we need to do anything else, we'll go ahead and try to assist them with their breathing. Like you said, control the breathing, and then prepare them or package them, as we say, to get them out of the vehicle safely.
Well, Burbank has one of the fastest response teams out of all of California, so we're very happy about that. Okay, looks like the driver's side is open. Now we're on the passenger side. We're starting with a pry bar, make a space, and they'll be doing the same process. Popping off the hinges.
And we'll put the jaws, the tip in there, and use a spreader, so the tip of the jaws to spread the door apart from the front fender and the door to expose the hinges.
Okay, 14 minutes into this, and they're trying to get the second door right now. Fortunately, we have patient treatment going on, but this is one of the reasons why we would call an additional truck company so they can, be working on the other side simultaneously.
The passengers. Notice he's covering her back up again, just in case there's more glass. They were mentioning that the dashboard was on the potential patient, if you will. They would extricate it by pulling a chain in the steering wheel.
Well, we can hook a chain around the steering wheel and then up to the front of the car and draw the jaws together. And what that'll do is pull the whole dash up. Or we can put a ram on the side here, raise it up against the side of the car in the floorboard, and then up on the dash, spread those, and that'll go ahead and raise the dash up also.
Excellent.
That's that relief cut I was telling you about right there, they're doing now.
Yeah, so what they're doing is he just cut a relief cut on this side. He's going to go cut another relief cut on the other side, and they're going to push the dash up away from the patients. No, he's just setting it so that we have a stable area.
Okay.
But before we push it, we got to make a little relief cut. If not, it won't push. We're just trying to change the weak spot in the vehicle right now.
These dedicated fire and paramedics put their lives on the line every day to rescue others. And thank goodness they do.
Just push it off, or would you have
Well, that depends. That's when it gets really tricky. That's when we're going to be cutting and creating an area. We don't just know. We won't blindly move anything because it can have serious effects. So you can see they're getting a little bit of push there off the dash as it starts moving up.
There goes the dashboard.
So
you can see it raising up.
So you guys can see the steering wheel
They're
clearly
raise it up
lifting
and
off
over.
away as they start splitting that car.
Now they can bring these
Had
guys
they not
out.
made those two relief cuts, they would have just pushed that dash and A-post up and it wouldn't have moved the steering wheel
Nice.
at all. So it's really important to think one step ahead.
It's a lot of hard work, and it's all about priorities depending on the injury. You've got to check her spine. If she's bleeding, they'll check for broken bones.
What we're going to do is lift your bottom a little bit. Slide the board underneath your bottom. And what I would be doing is I would be lifting you up a little bit.
You don't want to risk paralysis. It doesn't matter what the weather is. If it's raining 2 o'clock in the morning, it could be storming outside, or 115 degrees. These guys still take care of their jobs and rescue these people. That's who they are, and that's why we're so thankful for their dedication.
And that's the other thing you got to be really careful. When you're bringing them out, all this exposed metal will cut. It's super sharp. It'll cut you. I mean, it's like I said in there over and over again, you miss one step or you slip once and you're gonna cut someone, you're gonna injure someone. Okay, so they went ahead and extricated their patient, they got him on a backboard, now they're ready to go ahead and transport. If you guys wanna come up and take a look at what they did to the car, go ahead, feel free.
I'm here with Ed Shu, a second-year resident at UCLA. Ed, how was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was really good to see what, we get these patients when they're all packaged up and stabilized by the paramedics. So this is the first time I hadn't been able to see what it looks like.
It's a big difference from being over there, waiting for them to come in, than actually being a part of it, correct?
Oh, definitely. That gives you a much better sense for like what goes into getting the patients to us.
Well, like a lot of times people think it's a 5-minute process. In actuality, it can take 20, 30 minutes to get somebody out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you don't really appreciate that when you're waiting in the hospital.
And how does that feel? What about all the noises and what have you?
It was, well, they had us covered up, so we didn't get to see a lot of it, but given how close the space is, I'm glad I didn't see what they were doing.
It was amazing. I kind of cheated, and that glass was everywhere. It was blowing everywhere. And one of the things I noticed, they really take care in protecting.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So what is it? Does it feel any different now that you've actually been a part of the extrication?
Yeah, very much. I mean, I'll have a much better sense how important it is to know what the car looked like when they bring in a patient, see what the scene was like, get a sense of sort of what kind of damage was involved.
And how do you feel about, don't you think everybody should go through this?
I think so, yeah. I think it's a really good experience for us to see sort of what goes into what happens to the patients before they get to us in the hospital.
Yeah, because now it's a day in the life of, you can relate to what they're looking at, the trauma of everything, and just how fast they have to move to get to you guys.
Yep, exactly.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks.
You can imagine the trauma. You've just been in a major car accident, you're hurt God knows where, maybe everywhere, and we're going to make more noise and get you even more freaked out. So my concern are going to be the obvious, the basics. I mean, like, actually, if I can have you sit here, help me out a little bit again, this time no coat. Is identify ourselves, let them know we're here to help them. You've been in a bad accident, we're going to get you out of here. It's going to be a little bit of noise, a little bit of trouble, but we're going to get you out. And just start with their ABCs, LOC. Are they awake? Are they breathing? And as I'm doing that, I'm talking to them. Obviously, they're in a mangled car, and I don't have that much access to them. However I can get in, back door, even if I'm sticking my head in the window, and I'm talking to them, say, look, I'm holding your neck because I'm worried about your neck, from your neck all the way down your tailbone. Whatever comes out, because I'm amped up too. I see the accident, I want to get him out, and I want to make him as comfortable as I can. So talking to him, as you guys are learning well know, is like 75% of keeping my patient calm from getting in a worse condition and letting them know that they're going to be okay.
Medical patient where there's shortness of breath and you're trying to discern whether this is primarily pulmonary or cardiac, and it's going to help you make a determination about how you're going to manage that case in the field setting. Those may be pre-existing conditions in this patient, but the primary issues they're focusing on is extrication, stabilization, and going after major life-supporting function while they get the patient to the trauma center. We may then find out that this accident happened because the patient had a syncopal episode from a cardiac condition, and we're going to have to backtrack and figure that out after the fact. The other thing to keep in mind is it's hard to work out there. It's noisy. If they're in the street, if they're on the freeway, they don't want to be on the freeway and they don't want to be in the street. They want to be in there. Okay, it's a box, it's safer, it's quieter. So the primary game plan is to stabilize and get this person out of here into a place where they can look at him and do a full survey and attend to what's happening and splint that mangled leg. It may not happen until they're in the rig. Okay, so it's a completely different thing. But again, this was other than being rusty and old, this car was not all crumpled up, that they had other issues to deal with. It takes a good 20 minutes plus just to get access and get somebody on a spine board. So, the accident, contrary to what we think, and certainly contrary to what some of our surgical colleagues think, the accident didn't begin in the operating room. It began wherever it began, and we have all this time just clicking away while things are happening to the patient. They're dynamic situations. Things change from the time she's extricated to the time she gets in there to the time they're on the way to the hospital until we have them in the resuscitation suite. So it's always, I assess, I look again, we get pretty aggressive, I think, about reassessing the patients, and I think that's important because they change a lot.
I'm here with Captain Alvarez, and Captain, what do you think about today? It's pretty amazing. These interns get a feel for what's exactly about to happen.
Yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity for them to not only experience it from our perspective, from what happens from the time we get the call to the time we actually extricate the patient, the challenges we face in securing a scene, making the vehicle stable until we're actually able to extricate them, the things that we can do while the patient's inside to start treatment. And more importantly, a couple of them were able to experience what it's like being the actual patient and you know, being involved in an accident, being scared, disoriented, and all the things that are going on around them, so that they have a good idea when they actually get to the hospital of what's happening prior to it leading to that time.
I know I was in the back seat trying to get some of this video, and it was crazy back there. And I know that the second-year resident, Ed Chu, I believe his name was unbelievably impressed, and it changed his mind, his whole way of thinking about everything.
Yeah, that's the purpose, is for them to really understand what that patient's going through, what we're going through, the reason why it takes us so long sometimes to get that patient to the hospital. You know, there's a big process, and it can be challenging sometimes. So hopefully it opened their eyes up and gave them a little different perspective to what we do and what that patient goes through.
How long have you been doing this now?
I've been on the fire department for 13.5 years.
Well, thank you for your service.
All right, thank you.
I'm here with Chief Schmidt, and who's been on Burbank Fire Department for 25 years. Chief, how important was today's simulation?
Well, this is a great opportunity for these interns to get out here and see what happens in the field. We transport patients, critical patients, to the hospital all the time from traffic collisions, and without seeing really what takes place in the field, how long it takes to extricate a patient, and what type of trauma that they're exposed to, they don't have that understanding when they get that patient in there and they're all packaged up and nice and neat looking to understand what they went through out here. So this gives them a wonderful opportunity to see this and feel it firsthand, because we put a couple of them inside the front seat and they went through that extrication.
Well, I can say by sitting in the back seat and watching everything unfold, besides the noise factor, the one thing I noticed about you guys is safety first. You cover them up. It's amazing.
Yes, we've got glass flying everywhere. You've got sharp metal. You've got extremely powerful hydraulic tools cutting these new metals that we have out there. This is an older car we cut through, but the newer cars have metal mixes in them that are extremely high tensile strength. So when they cut, they snap and They break really high pressures under the hydraulic tool. So it's really a concern of ours that the people inside are safe as we're getting extricated.
And speaking of glass, I asked you a question earlier, and what's the difference between nowadays with the safety glass with the windshield as back in the day?
Yeah, if you remember, the old windshields were all glass, and if someone was not seat belted in, they would actually get thrown through the windshield. Right. We've had decapitations, right. Extremely traumatic injuries from windshield glass. Now that the glass is laminated, you've got a plastic layer. Let me show you here.
Please.
Between the two glass layers, you've got two glass layers, and in between you've got a plastic layer. And you can see that piece of plastic in there. Right. Helps hold it all together. So it's sandwiched together, and that gives it the opportunity to stay together. You'll get a spidering effect. If somebody does hit the windshield, it'll stay intact, and they won't go through the windshield.
Chief, tell me the significance with Dr. Stephen Rotman on board.
Well, Dr. Rotman's been our medical director for over 30 years now, and he's been integral to employing some of the most up-to-date medical treatments in the field for our paramedics, and we've been ahead of the curve for a long, long time because of him.
Wow, that's great. And I know you're going to give us an introduction in about 3 minutes.
Yeah, we'll find him. We'll get him over here. He's talking to the interns right now, but this program that he put together, he's been doing this for quite a while, bringing the interns in here, giving them an opportunity to see what this is all about from the field side.
Thanks so much, Chief.
My pleasure. I think he's available here. Here's Dr. Rotman right now. Come on, talk to him a second.
Hi. How are you, sir?
Steve Rotman.
Robert
Hi.
Vincent, nice to meet you. So tell me, Dr. Rotman, you're quite an asset to Burbank. What exactly happens?
One of the things that we're concerned about here in the medical center, I work in the trauma center, and one of the things that we're trying to teach our residents is to have an appreciation for what is done for their patients before they ever get into our trauma resuscitation room. And for these young doctors to understand how vehicles collapse, what happens to patients that are inside those vehicles, and how incredibly difficult it is to get them out safely, quickly, without causing any injury, both to the patients as well as to the fire service personnel, is something that they're just not going to have an opportunity to get. They're all going to go out and work in hospitals, some are going to work in trauma centers. We see the patients who come to us that are treated and extricated, and they're splinted, they're immobilized, they have IVs started, they have neck protection on, and they're very well presented to us. They need to understand how these patients get that way, and the precision that has to go into extricating them, stabilizing them, and getting them to us in a better condition than they were when they were found. And I think by bringing them here and having a couple of them actually experience what it's like to be extricated, see how long it takes. This is an old car, but it's not a damaged car. And it took 20 minutes to tear it apart enough to just be able to get access to the first patient and get her removed from the vehicle. They need to understand that when they get a call that says the units are working an accident and there's going to be an extrication involved, part of that patient's care is just happening as time is clicking. And there's this conversation about if somebody is bleeding internally, you need to figure out where that's coming from, and if they need surgery, they need to have it within a fixed period of time. The clock starts ticking at the point of impact. That means someone had to recognize the accident.
Right.
Someone had to dial 911. Paramedics and truck companies had to be dispatched. They had to secure the scene, get access to the patient, stabilize them before they could even get them into an ambulance to do the next step and then transport them. So I think that the opportunity that the department gave to these physicians is really a gift, and it's probably unlike what they're going to get in any other program. So the relationship, I think, between the Burbank Fire Department and the residency program that we have at UCLA it's a very nice connection, and this is a real unique experience for them.
Well, I know you're quite a plus for the city of Burbank, and they're very happy to have you. And I know after living that experience just now, I feel incredibly grateful for yourself and for our fire department.
Oh, the guys are terrific. They take this very seriously. They train for this. They know what they're doing. They have, they're anticipating the next step and the next step, so that each move they make is a well thought out game of chess, so that something is not left uncovered or left vulnerable. We have to do the same thing in the hospital. Every time we take an action, what's the next step and the next step? So there are a lot of parallels between what our colleagues do in the street and what we have to anticipate in the hospital. It's important for them to see that interplay.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
We've just experienced what it's like for an extrication from the inside out, as did these UCLA interns. They have a whole newfound respect for the paramedics and firefighters, the timetable, and what it takes to get them from the car to the hospital. I'm Robert Vincent from BurbankNBeyond.com.